You know, if anyone had told me before the start of this season that Nation of Beasts would become one of my favorite hand cannons, I would have laughed at them. For that matter, if anyone had told me that I would care about the Last Wish weapons in general, minus 1k voices of course, I would have laughed even harder. But the reworked Last Wish weapons that dropped this season are no joke. And it's not as though they were necessarily bad before the rework either, it's just that by today's standards, they were very average at best. But Guardians, if you were to ask me which raid in the game had the best overall loot pool, for the first time maybe ever, I'd strongly consider Last Wish. The weapons are now extremely potent, both in PvP and PvE. I want to review all of these weapons given time, and I have all but 2 craftable after a near 12-hour Cali farm that had myself and truly incredible LFG team about ready to lose our collective minds.
You motherfucker, I was standing in front of the door, that should have gave it a
Oh no.
I was like the Greek warrior Baphodes. It's like Achilles, but his only weakness is both of these nuts. This makes you want to rub your nipples with sandpaper, doesn't it?
Oh god. Jesus.
It would have cost you $0 to not say that shit.
Beat your meat with nitroglycerin.
No.
Oh my.
Shout out to those guys because that was a real endurance test. Oh
I got a second pistol. It's crazy.
Fucking hell.
Nope.
Today, we're starting our Last Wish series with Nation of Beasts, the weapon I was the most excited for. Now previously, before the rework happened, Nation of Beasts wasn't a really bad weapon, it just wasn't a particularly good one. But now it's back and honestly better than ever. Nation of Beasts went from being what I would consider to be realistically a C tier hand cannon, maybe B tier if you're being generous, to a solidly A tier hand cannon that has the potential to become S tier in the future. Mainly because its perk pool is absolutely stacked. Let's take a look at it. In the first column for your barrels, extended barrel, polygonal rifling, chambered compensator, small bore, corkscrew rifling, full bore, hammer forged rifling, arrowhead break, and fluted barrel. In the second column for your magazine perks, steady rounds, alloy magazine, appended mag, flared magwell, extended mag, tactical mag, and accurized rounds. In the third column, hipfire grip, discord, eddy current, keep away, dragonfly, opening shot, and perpetual motion. In the fourth column, offhand strike, harmony, collective action, golden tricorn, explosive payload, kill clip, and volt shot. Then we have the intrinsic perk, Explosive Pact. This weapon gains bonus stability and reload speed when activating a grenade ability. Healing grenades and grenade final blows grant additional stacks of the bonus. Yeah, compared to the old perk pool, this is an improvement on an exponential level. And I do want to applaud Bungie because this is how you bring back an old weapon, especially one from a raid as iconic as The Last Wish. Now, as always with hand cannons, the main focus here will be PvP, but we'll start with PvE rolls just to kind of get that out of the way. As always, keep in mind, hand cannons are a bottom tier choice for PvE right now. Just about any other category of primaries in the game will serve you better. But if you do like using cannons in PvE for personal enjoyment or whatever the reason may be, there are some options here. For barrel perks, I honestly tend not to worry about these much in PvE, but probably go for range. However, if you're on controller, stability is definitely helpful, especially on hand cannons. For magazine perks, really anything that will increase reload speed or mag size would be my recommendation. In the third column, Firefly is probably my favorite option here, though given that one of the issues with hand cannons in PvE is their mag size, eddy current, which will increase your reload speed after sprinting, might be an okay choice, so that you can get that faster reload after sprinting and get the gun back in the fight. In the fourth column, really any damage perk will be good for ad clear, and you have plenty of those. Kill clip, golden tricorn, which we're all well acquainted with, as well as a new perk, collective action, which will give you a damage boost from elemental pickups such as stasis shards and fire sprites, or throwing a tangle strand. It's a pretty substantial one too at 20%. We do also have Volt Shot. I've never been as big a fan of this perk as some, but it might be a good choice for anyone rocking an Arc build. But once again, and this is mostly directed at new players because I think most longtime veterans are aware of this, hand cannons just are not the play for PvE right now for anything other than personal enjoyment. If you're really looking to max out efficiency, there are way better options. Moving on to the juicy stuff, let's talk about how this hand cannon does in PvP. Now, objectively speaking, the best 140 energy hand cannons in the game are going to be Exalted Truth and Palindrome. This is mainly because both of these weapons are stat monsters. You can get incredible stats across the board on both of these weapons, and both of them can achieve extremely high ranges. Exalted Truth with just a max range roll will reach out to 38 meters, Palindrome will reach out to slightly less. But that's with passive range perks. If you were to include Killing Wind on a max range Palindrome roll, then when Killing Wind is procced, Pally can actually reach all the way out to around 40 meters. Nation of Beasts unfortunately can't do this yet, but I want everyone to remember something that could potentially make this weapon a direct contender to hand cannons such as Pally or Exalted. The big reason those hand cannons can reach that range is because of Rangefinder, and Rangefinder is getting nuked eventually as Bungie is planning on making it so that your zoom stat has no effect on the actual reach of a weapon. What this means is Rangefinder will not provide any additional range. As it stands right now, Rangefinder by itself gives you around 3 extra meters of range. That will not be the case once those range changes go into effect. As a result, all hand cannons will be getting a base range buff so that they can compete with pulse rifles, and I would imagine so that losing Rangefinder isn't a death sentence to hand cannons such as Palindrome. Now when that happens, chances are Palindrome and Exalted Truth will still outrange nearly every other 140 hand cannon in the game, including Nation of Beasts. But the gap will be narrower. What that means is that Nation of Beasts will have a much easier time competing, especially given the fact that as of right now, Nation has a much superior PvP perk pool than Pally, and one that is at least on par with Exalted. But even as it stands now, this is a very potent weapon, and when the range changes hit, this will be an even better weapon. Now, let's talk about rolls. For your barrel perk, my top pick would be Hammerforged Rifling for the boost to range. Hammerforged gives you plus 10 to your range with no downsides. Second choice would be Full Bore, it gives you even more range, but it does hurt your stability and handling. For your mag perk, easily accurized rounds. Like it's not even a question, accurized rounds wins here. There is no second or third choice because accurized rounds is the best option here by far. It gives you a flat plus 10 to your range with no downsides. Do not use any other mag perk. Now, the third and fourth columns are where things get a little bit more interesting, and I think in these columns, most people are chasing the wrong roll. I'll get to that in a bit here. The best choices in the third column are going to be Keep Away, Opening Shot, and Perpetual Motion. Perpetual Motion gives you a substantial boost to your stability, handling, and reload speed just for moving around. Opening Shot gives you extra range, stability, and aim assist on the first shot of an attack. Keep Away gives you a passive plus 10 to your range and boosts your reload speed as long as there are no enemies within 15 meters of you. In the fourth column, the best picks are going to be Explosive Payload, Kill Clip, Collective Action, Golden Tricorn, or Harmony. Explosive Payload helps your range, as the impact damage from the bullet striking a target has fall off, but the explosive damage does not, and it adds a ton of extra flinch. Kill Clip gives you a 25% damage boost if you reload after a kill for 5 seconds. Collective Action gives you a 20% damage boost after throwing a Tangle or picking up an elemental pickup such as a Stasis Shard or Fire Sprite. Golden Tricorn will give you a stacking damage buff. 15% from getting a kill with the weapon itself, and if you get a grenade or powered melee kill while Tricorn is still active, it bumps your damage all the way up to 50%. This is very potent, but inconsistent without a melee build or grenade build. Lastly, Harmony will give you a 20% damage buff for getting a kill with another weapon. Now, the most common picks I've seen in these columns are either Keep Away or Opening Shot in the third column and Explosive Payload in the fourth column. I do think that Payload is the best choice in the fourth column. It helps your range and adds extra flinch. I would honestly take Payload over any of the damage perks. I tend not to be a huge fan of damage perks on 140s because while they do add forgiveness in your shot placement, meaning you don't have to hit as many crits with certain damage perks, they usually will not actually decrease your time to kill. So for this reason, on most legendary 140s, I prefer perks that lean into consistency, so Payload is my first choice here without question. However, in the third column, while Keep Away and Opening Shot aren't bad choices by any means, particularly Keep Away with the passive plus 10 to range it gives you, I honestly think that Perpetual Motion is the play here. Let's take a look at a nearly max range roll. I say nearly max range because I'm choosing Hammer Forged over Full Bore here. Then Accurized Rounds, Keep Away, and Explosive Payload with a range masterwork. That takes us up to 80 range when Keep Away is active. That's an outstanding range stat to be sure, and our stability is still okay at 57, but our handling is only 47. If we swap out Keep Away for Perpetual Motion, you can see that when Perpetual Motion is procced at 2 stacks, our overall stats are way better, and you're only losing around 1 meter of range. You could even go with Full Bore and have 75 range with just over 32 meters of reach and still have very good stability and handling. On the flip side, if you went with Full Bore and Keep Away, your range goes all the way up to 85, giving you nearly 34 meters of range, but your stability goes all the way down to 47 and your handling is an abysmal 37. So, while a max range roll of Nation of Beasts with Keep Away has good reach, I would honestly rather sacrifice a couple of meters of range and replace Keep Away with Perpetual Motion because once Perpetual procs, it turns this weapon into something of a stat monster as a whole. So Perpetual Motion would be my absolute top pick in that third column, Keep Away is my second choice, and Opening Shot as my third. For that reason, my top roll for Nation of Beasts would be Hammer Forged Rifling or Full Bore with Accurized Rounds, Enhanced Perpetual Motion, Enhanced Opening Shot, and a Range Masterwork. This turns this weapon into an extremely consistent dueling weapon and one that feels like a dream to shoot. I do want to point out that I don't think that Keep Away or Opening Shot are bad options either. This hand cannon will still feel very good with those, but with the overall stat spread that Perpetual Motion gives you, I do think it's worth sacrificing some range. I tried swapping out Perpetual Motion with Keep Away and with Opening Shot, and Nation still felt very good, but Perpetual Motion still just felt better. Now, this weapon does still have a couple of downsides to keep in mind. First off, it has a lower aim assist stat than most 140s at 71, which is closer to that of Ace of Spades or Exalted Truth. Ace and Exalted can get away with this due to Ace coming stock with 85 range and the extreme forgiveness that Mori gives you, and Exalted Truth has the best overall stats of any 140 in the game, so on these weapons that lower aim assist isn't that big of a deal. Most other 140s are higher than this, such as Ostringer at 75, Rose at 85, Palindrome at 79, or Spare Rations at 83, just to name a few examples. Aim assist might not seem all that important, especially if you're on M&K, but trust me when I tell you that in Destiny 2, it does make a difference. If you don't believe me, try putting on a weapon with Slick Draw or Gut Shot Straight, both of which lower your aim assist substantially. If you really want to test it, get an Exalted Truth with both Slick Draw and Gut Shot, then come back and tell me it doesn't matter, because believe me, it does, regardless of the input. Now, coming back to Nation, you can of course raise the aim assist with targeting mods on the weapon or on your helmet, which might be worth considering. For me, Nation of Beasts still felt good enough, particularly with the roll that I mentioned, that I really didn't notice the lower aim assist. The weapon still performed how I wanted it to, and that's all that matters to me. The other thing to keep in mind is that some people just don't like how this weapon feels. Sometimes it's because of the sights, the way it sounds, the way it recoils, the fact that it feels a little floaty at times. The way a weapon feels, and I mean just the raw feeling that comes with moving with it, aiming with it, pulling the trigger, so on and so forth, isn't really something that can be described. I personally love how this hand cannon feels, but some people don't, so before you sink a ton of crafting materials into it, it might be worth playing with it a little just to see if you like how the weapon feels. What I usually do is just craft a normal roll with no enhanced perks and test it out, keeping in mind that obviously enhanced perks will make it perform better. Then, after playing with it for a while, both in PvP and PvE, if I like it, I'll go back to the crafting table and throw on the enhanced perks. So, to summarize things here, Nation of Beasts is a great hand cannon, and one that will only get better when the range changes drop. I would recommend this weapon to anyone because it's just a good hand cannon. I would say it's solidly A tier, but has a few shortcomings that prevents it from climbing up to S tier. As always, you might feel differently, but I would at least recommend just giving this weapon a try. Another thing to keep in mind is this is an extremely accessible weapon. Nation of Beasts is craftable, and you can farm it anytime Last Wish is in rotation as the weekly Pinnacle raid. You can also run it once a week and spend spoils at Hawthorns to get a deep sight once a week. Plus, it doesn't require you to play GMs or Trials of Osiris or anything of the sort, which is honestly a huge bonus for a lot of people. So hit up Last Wish, get it crafted, and take it for a spin. It's a really good time. But that's all from me today, Guardians. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, do me a favor and leave me a comment. Let me know if you have this weapon yet, and if you're liking it. Also, as always, do me a favor and hit that like button and the subscribe button with the bell icon. It really does help me out. For now, I will see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.